so he had to actually drive over and get a copy.
Oh, there you go.
He's not the only one that's done that. Yeah.
I mean, we said it to them. That's them who
No.
didn't put us in the right place.
At that show, we dropped the new rankings off and put them out amongst the crowd, and you guys all got a copy of them here now.
Definitely going to be a change in the 185s.
Yeah.
Demetrius Joyner got the W over Carlitos Jones.
Yeah, and the 125ers, Walsh got upset in the cold by Porter, so, you know, but that's why we're only doing them once a month. There's fights
I
going
just don't
on.
know if there's, just like, I don't think they should have gave any type of titles that night.
Because
just
of the conditions.
The conditions weren't right.
You know what, though? I thought about it afterwards, and the conditions weren't right. Wasn't even real satisfied with the decision. This could be, Mr. Penicks. Let me check this. I'll be right back.
We'll see if this is MMA torch call, and we'll come back to our local rankings.
Yeah, but I don't think these things should be, you should automatically that night said, none of these are title fights, none of these are ranking fights, none of these are anything here, because otherwise people should have backed out. You know, it was, why would you fight?
But what I was going to say is, you know, the gentleman who beat Carlitos that night, Demetrius Joyner, I don't know if you heard his speech afterwards, but his mom is in the hospital with lung cancer in Springfield, and so he gave a really heartwarming speech. He left immediately, didn't stay for the after party, brought that belt over to his mom. So, you know, it's all karma. It's not bad.
Yeah, and he fought a good fight.
And he fought a
very
very
good
good
fight.
And the sponsors have
Look at
promised.
this, the conditions may have sucked, but both guys fought in the same conditions.
Very true.
Exactly.
Well, see, I don't consider that necessarily true. Some people handle cold a lot better than other people.
Some
Well,
people
but
handle
they
getting
were still in
punched.
the same conditions.
Well, I know, but that's the difference. That's within your control.
Right.
Right.
But the conditions are some people, because they didn't know they were going to fight. Some of the guys, the fighters, didn't know they were fighting
Right.
outside until then. Some of the people. Go ahead.
Hey, Jamie, welcome to the Ground and Pound Show.
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going good. I know there's a lot going on. What is going on in the world of MMA? What's first and foremost?
Well, we've got a couple of new fight announcements coming up with another bout for 108 on January 2nd with Gabriel Gonzaga against Junior Dos Santos. Good heavyweight matchup. Dos Santos is kind of taking the progression. Took out Krokop in his last fight, the guy that Gonzaga made his name on with that head kick heard around the world in 2007, I believe it was. And so those two are going to face off on January 2nd. And then a big fight planned for the UFC's first foray into Australia, as they will be facing off again. It'll be Vanderlei Silva against Yoshihiro Akiyama, likely in Australia, possibly in Las Vegas, but they're looking at putting that one on the first Australia show sometime in February or March, which makes the most sense because Australia is an hour off of Japan, where both Akiyama and Vanderlei Silva were major stars, so that would be a big deal fight for the Japanese audience and a big fight for the UFC. So those are two fights coming up that should be a good kickstart to the 2010 schedule.
They're going to meet over in Australia at 185, aren't they? So that'll be Silva's first time at 185?
Yeah, it'll be his first UFC fight at 185. The full drop now after fighting the catchweight bout with Rich Franklin. So that should be interesting to see how he makes the cut. And it'll be a definite size disparity in that fight because Akiyama is a small middleweight. I mean, he is definitely... His body looks primed for 170, as a lot of the Japanese guys, they fight at their natural weights over in Japan, and when they don't cut weight like the guys do here in the U.S., so a lot of the middleweights are, hanging around at 200, 205 pounds and dropping down to 185, whereas Akiyama looks more like he walks around at 190, cuts a little water weight, and he's good to go.
It should be a very interesting fight. Speaking of January 2nd, what's going on with Anderson Silva?
Well, he had elbow surgery last week to repair some chronic damage and stuff that he's had on that elbow. And from the sounds of it, he doesn't want to accept a challenger right now to his middleweight title. The UFC first wanted to have him face Dan Henderson or Nate Marquardt, and he said, no, I want those two to face each other, and then the winner can face me. That makes the most sense. And then with Vitor Belfort coming in and taking out Rich Franklin in the first round like he did at UFC 103, the UFC wants to put Vitor into that spot against Anderson on that January 2nd card. But Silva and his manager Ed Swords don't believe that that Belfort is a deserving candidate right now for that title shot, and question whether he'd be able to make the weight after he struggled to make the 196 catch weight. Even though he had no problem making weight for Affliction both times that he fought for them. I don't think it will be an issue. I think ultimately the two of them will face off. I think Silva will end up facing who the UFC wants him to face, but I think it'll end up being him and Belfort, and then Marquardt and Henderson once Henderson gets signs a new deal with the UFC. Once they are able to come to an agreement with that, they're still in negotiations on that and have not signed on the dotted line. But that fight will be. It'll be him and Marquardt, and then the winner of that will take on the winner of Belfort Anderson once that one takes place.
I'd be really excited to see Henderson and Marquardt fight. That should be a very good fight. They've never met before, have they?
No, they have not, and that's definitely one that a lot of people are interested to see. And both guys have had cracks at Anderson before, and both just dispatched of their opponents in high-profile fights in decisive fashion. Obviously, everyone saw Henderson's knockout of Michael Bisping, and Nate Marquardt made quick work of Demian Maia in their fight at 102. So both are definitely deserving contenders, and to fight one another should be a great fight that will determine a clear number one contender in the middleweight division.
You see that fight going to a knockout?
I think it does, because both have the wrestling ability to keep the other one on the feet. I think both have the takedown defense necessary to keep that fight standing and make it just an all-out war. And I think that's one that one of those guys is getting knocked out.
Marquardt always seems so powerful to me. Do you think Henderson's in that power category? Do you think he could be as strong as Marquardt?
Well, Henderson's right hand is as powerful as just about anyone in middleweight or light heavyweight. I mean, when he lands with that right hand, it can be devastating. But Marquardt has shown a renewed power and a renewed just.
Whoops. I think we lost him there. I guess he'll be calling back in a second. That was a good one, too.
Finish his sentence.
The first caller may call in and finish Jamie's sentence. I imagine Jamie will call back.
Well, people that have worked with Henderson say he's the strongest human being for his size they've ever felt.
Okay.
Hand
Marquardt,
strength,
man, he's
everything
so
wise.
strong.
When he clinches you, he's the one that can tap you out with all kind of techniques that nobody else ever taps anyone with. He just puts it on and just crushes you. And so, yeah, Henderson has got a strength to match anyone.
There he is. Jamie?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. We lost you somehow.
That's all right. Where was I?
I think we were talking about Henderson and Marquardt, and you were talking about Henderson's power and his punch.
Henderson's right hand.
Oh, and also Marquardt's renewed strength.
Oh yeah. After Marquardt's fight with Anderson Silva, he's kind of a renewed fighter, and with the exception of the fight against Talaslitis, where he had 2 points deducted and lost a decision there, he's looked absolutely devastating in fights against Martin Kampmann, Wilson Govea, and then Demian Maia, and he's picked up some very big victories and has looked as good as he ever has. And I mean, he's had a lengthy career, and he's been good for all of it. I mean, he's had some ups and downs. He has losses on his record, but more often than not, he's coming away with his hand raised in fights.
Yeah, he's very, very tough. I know we'll talk more about this next week if you're able to be on the show, but give us a little overview of Machida versus Hua.
It's a great fight with Machida and Shogun because, I mean, Shogun is the most deserving challenger right now with Rashad and Rampage locked up, and if he has been able to recover some of what he had over in Pride, that when he came over to the UFC and fought Forrest Griffin, everyone thought he was the #1 light heavyweight in the world. He had a knee injury going into that fight, and he had some other things where he wasn't able to train properly. I mean, you can always make excuses and make excuses. He got beat in that fight. He looked bad against Mark Coleman, even though he won. He looked better against Chuck Liddell, but still not back on top of his game. If this is a 100% Mauricio Shogun Hua against Lyoto Machida, we're in for an absolute